Let's bring in Seth Davis, CBS Sports, live from Dallas. Who would you want? What career?
I think barely alive from Dallas might be. I love Howard. You know, that's a hard one to. You throw Howard in the mix with anybody, I'm almost always going to go with Howard.
Okay.
But I'll take. They're all doing better than me, Dan. So I'll take any of them, really.
Were you there for the birth of all your children?
Yes.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 boys.
Okay. What if it was Final Four?
I would never. I would always do everything I could to be at the birth of my children, which is why none of my children were born in March. By the way, that's not a coincidence. Now, I'm blessed. I'm blessed that we were able to make that that plan. But we got 2 birthdays in May and 1 in December. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
This Jabari Parker situation. We had Steve Wojciechowski on yesterday, and just reading between the lines, I got the feeling that he believes Jabari Parker is staying at Duke. You being a Duke alum, what do you think?
Well, I think there's a real good chance. I mean, I'm programmed to believe that when a kid has a chance to be a top 3, top 5 NBA draft pick, he goes. I mean, you can almost really count on one hand the number of kids who have turned that down. But he is a different kind of kid, and I would not underestimate the impact of losing to Mercer has on someone like Jabari Parker. Number one, he went to Duke for a reason. He could have gone to any school and been the top 3 NBA draft pick. He went to Duke because he wanted to have certain experiences, and I think that a game like that pokes some holes in his confidence and exposes the weaknesses in his game. Mason Plumlee went through the same thing. He thought he was definitely going to go pro. Then they lost to Lehigh, and he said, "Shoot, if I can't, get my team past Lehigh." No disrespect to Lehigh, but if I can't get my team out of the first round, then maybe I'm not ready for the NBA. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm always going to be skeptical until I hear the kid say it. But the fact that he hasn't said anything by now would certainly, give validity to the notion that he might actually be coming back, which would be pretty frightening given the recruiting class they have coming in.
And also with Coach K, I think he announced recently he's going to coach 5 more years, and then all of a sudden Steve Wojciechowski takes the Marquette job. He said that he wasn't the coach in waiting. Do you think Coach K saying he's going to coach 5 more years had any impact on Wojo going to Marquette?
No, none. And just there had been some rumors circulating that maybe Coach K was going to call it quits, and Coach K doesn't know if he's coaching for 5 more years. I mean, he does. How could he possibly know that? He's as much of an in-the-moment guy as I've ever met. So I think that was done to squelch some rumors. Wojo's had some opportunities to go. He almost took the Dayton job a number of years ago. And unlike, most assistants, he's had the luxury of waiting for a job of the quality of Marquette. For most assistant coaches, a job like Marquette is not even within the realm. So he had the luxury of waiting for a job that would be worthy of him leaving. He had a great job, and there's always speculation as far as who's next. I would say most of the betting money is on Wojo. I remember every time I talked to Wojo about it, he said, they're just going to strap Coach K like Weekend at Bernie's and wheel him around. just keep him on the job for another 20 years. That's actually not a bad idea.
So his successor will likely come from one of his former players, if it's Johnny Dawkins or Tommy Amaker or Steve Wojciechowski, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Chris Collins?
Yeah, no, when he I wouldn't say he almost took the Lakers job, but when he entertained the Lakers job, Johnny Dawkins was the lead assistant, and there was a very strong assumption at that time that if Coach K left, that Dawkins would slide in there. But I would say Dawkins, Collins, and Wojciechowski are your 3. I think I don't think someone like guys like Mike Bray and Tommy Amaker, frankly, I'm not sure how much they really want it. They've been around the bend a little bit, and they've had that experience. Yeah. And so it'll be a couple years, but just because he says he's coaching another 5 years doesn't mean he's coaching another 5 years. I mean, he might, but I'm not connecting those dots.
He's Seth Davis from CBS and also Sports Illustrated. The book is Wooden, A Coach's Life that Seth wrote recently. Best story of the Final Four is what or whom?
I think it's Kentucky. I think they're the story of this tournament. In a lot of ways, they're the story of the season and the story of the sport. I mean, the full cycle of coming in as a preseason number 1 ranked team, people hyping it as the greatest recruiting class of all time, which I thought was ludicrous, still think is ludicrous, but They took their lumps during the season, and they had a really bad stretch at the end of February. They got swept by Arkansas. They lose at South Carolina, which, frankly, is a pretty bad team. Calipari gets ejected from the game, doesn't show up at the post-game press conference, starts spouting off about conspiracy theories and everybody's against us, and you build us up just so you could put us down. And it seemed like things were unraveling. And, he can talk all he wants about tweaks and this and that, but his ability to hold that locker room together during that stretch, I think, was pretty extraordinary. And I think it validates a lot of what he says about his guys and about his team. It's similar to what, Dan, I was saying about Jabari Parker. I didn't like the narrative of, well, these guys are just, in college for 1 year so they can turn pro. They're not invested. They don't really care. They don't like each other. They're all just, again, Julius Randle could have gone to any college in the country or not gone to college. And done whatever for a year and still going to wind up a top 5 draft pick. Why would he go to Kentucky? He goes to Kentucky because he wants to win. Yeah. And, I think I asked this of Calipari yesterday. He kind of dismissed it, but I don't think I'm far off in saying, Dan, that I think that once they hit that rock bottom and kind of wore the underdog hat, I think it fit them better. And I think he did a better job defining their roles. And let's not dismiss the role that luck plays in getting to a Final Four. It's like my grandfather used to say, a little mazel. You're looking at Wichita State, Louisville, and Michigan. 2 of those 3 games came down to the final possession, and Louisville was decided in the final 40 seconds. So any of those 3 games could have gone the other way. Kentucky wouldn't have been here. But I'm happy for those kids because a lot of people were taking shots at them. And trying to again connect the dots between performance on the court and someone's personal character, and I never like to do that. I don't think those 2 things are one and the same.
Well, no, I just didn't think they knew how to play.
Yes, exact. That's exact. They don't know.
Yes,
they're freshmen in college.
Yes, and it showed. It was at times it was an and one mixed tape, and it was AAU basketball, but. Here's another thing that I think is underrated. You got, I think, 3 of these kids on Kentucky who are from the Dallas area, so they're going back home.
Yes.
Which is another advantage for Kentucky. Here's my final question for you: the one player is there a player who can take over a game?
Shabazz Napier. Because he's a guard. Now, Frank Kaminsky, the center for Wisconsin, obviously he took over the Arizona game. He's a tough matchup. A lot of teams don't have anybody who's big enough to bang with them in the post and quick enough to hang with them outside the 3-point line. Arizona center couldn't do that, so Sean Miller basically couldn't play him. Kentucky actually has 4 of those guys, and that doesn't include Willie Cauley-Stein, who's hurt and is probably not going to play. Shabazz Napier is going to have the ball in his hands, and he can dominate in a lot of different ways. He's among the league leaders in assists and steals. He's the team leader in rebounds. He can absolutely pull a Kemba, and don't think Florida doesn't know that. So if there's one guy who could go off and completely dominate this Final Four and become the story, I would pick Napier.
Good to visit with you, Seth. Have fun this weekend.
Thank you, Dan. Always appreciate the chance to visit.
All right. Love you. Seth Davis, Mazel.